cow's milk by adding 2 human genes. The protein lactoferrin, which provides infants with antibacterial and antiviral protection, and lysozyme, which is also an antibacterial agent, said researcher Adrian Muto at a press conference. So their goal is to raise the nutritional value of cow's milk. And yet they don't think that they could accomplish that by allowing us to simply have the unpasteurized, the untreated milk. We don't think that we can improve the quality of the milk by not placing all of these horrific hormones and other additives into the stuff. Our goal was to raise the nutritional value of cow's milk. Well, sir, I invite you to think about other goals for what you can do with your time, because that's sick. To put human genetics into this beast in order to accomplish... folks, I'm turning my attention on. At times I have to remind myself I can't let the anger boil over. I need to stick to the facts, ma'am. So I'm turning now to the next article, which I think should send some chills up and down your spine. This is written by, it was posted in Live Science in their technology section. It's actually dated, get this, August of 2008. I've reached into the Crimson Pill archives here to pull out a couple of these articles that I think, once again, should send chills through you when we put them in conjunction with this information about human-animal hybrids of late. Back to the Live Science article, the title, Microscopic Battery Made with Live Viruses. And I begin to quote, tiny futuristic batteries will be half the size of a human cell and built with viruses, researchers announced today. Now, are we talking about some fringe university research program from somewhere obscure we've never heard of in the world? Well, I'll let you be the judge of that, because we're talking about engineers at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, have developed 2 of the 3 parts of such microbatteries. They could be used to power implantable medical sensors or laboratories the size of computer chips, among other small things. They could also be integrated with other living things in ways not yet envisioned. Well, don't give me that. You folks are envisioning it. The hand and the foot, the elite, the New World Order, they have plenty of visions about how they're going to use this technology. I continue to read. The tiny power packs would be stamped or printed right onto the surface of a device. To our knowledge, this is a quote, to our knowledge, this is the first instance in which micro-contact printing has been used to fabricate and position microbattery electrodes, and the first use of virus-based assembly in such a process, writes MIT professors Paula T. Hammond, Angela M. Belcher, and Yet-Ming Cheng. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name there, friend, along with their colleagues in the proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. The team has built and tested 2 of the 3 components needed. The technique itself does not involve any expensive equipment and is done at room temperature. So maybe that's why they prefaced it by saying, to our knowledge, this is the first instance in which they've done it, because maybe they think that my Uncle Fred has already been working on this, since it doesn't require expensive equipment and can be done at room temperature. I return to it. Next came the viruses that self-assemble atop the polymer layers on the posts, ultimately forming the anode. The result, a stamp of tiny posts, each covered with layers of electrolyte and cobalt oxide anode. Then we turn the stamp over. I'm going to skip forward here, folks, in the interest of time, but I will finish by saying, again, a quote, this one from Belcher, we're also interested in integrating the batteries with biological organisms. I absolutely bet you are interested in doing that, and I think you're probably a lot more than interested. I think you've already done it. And I think, folks, that we're going to continue to find articles along the lines of stuff like the H1N1 virus. I repeat, virus, the thing that we've been told all of our lives, and we know that these viruses are unpredictable, that they mutate, that they adapt. And here they are screwing around with making batteries out of viruses. And back as far as 2008, as they worked on it, they were already talking then about how their plan is to merge them and integrate them and use them, implant them perhaps even, in devices and for use with biological organisms. And when they say biological organisms, folks, they don't mean some mutant turtle they pull out of a acid-infested lake. They're talking about you and I. The work was funded by the Army Research Office. Ladies and gentlemen, what I've covered so far is just the beginning. Wait until you get a load of my next headline Brain in a dish acts as autopilot, a living computer. We'll be back to talk about that after this word from our sponsors, folks. We'll see you on the other side. And ladies and gentlemen, at 23 minutes after the hour, you are back with the Crimson Pill and your host, Antonin Fiore, here on the 30th of July, 2011. I am turning now to an article first printed in Science Daily. And again, the title of the article, Brain in a Dish Acts as Autopilot, living computer. Now, I'm not going to tell you the date of this. I did reach into the Crimson Pill archives to pull this one out when I came across the information about the human-animal hybrids that we talked about a bit earlier in the show. I'm not going to share this date with you quite yet until after I revealed some of the high points of what this research is that they've conducted. Once again, we're not talking about the University of Timbuktu in Cabanchcapan. We're talking about Gainesville, Florida, at the University of Florida, where a scientist has grown a living brain that can fly a simulated plane, giving scientists a novel way to observe how brain cells function as a network. The quote-unquote brain, which is a collection of 25,000 living neurons or nerve cells taken from a rat's brain and cultured inside a glass dish, gives scientists a unique real-time window into the brain at the cellular level. By watching the way the brain cells interact, scientists hope to understand what causes neural disorders such as epilepsy and to determine non-invasive ways to intervene. Oh, they've always got such a really good fairy tale to feed us about the rationale for getting into this stuff. But folks, when you follow the money back to the places, the sources that are actually funding this research, you find out they care very little about what it can do to help with epilepsy. Instead, they're hoping that may someday, and I'm again reading from the article, they may someday be used to fly small unmanned airplanes or handle tasks that are dangerous for humans, such as search and rescue missions or bomb damage assessments. That, again, is directly from the article. That's not just my interpretation superimposed here, folks. And let me remind you, this brain that I'm about to tell you what it's capable of doing is a collection of 25,000 living neurons, in other words, nerve cells, taken from a rat's brain and then cultured inside a glass dish. And what have they done with it? Well, they've connected it up to a flight simulator. I don't know exactly which program. Maybe it's the famous Microsoft flight simulator software. But that rat's brain, connected to an array of 60 electrodes, can interact with the computer in order to fly that simulated F-22 fighter plane. Is that just a coincidence that that's the particular plane they have it flying, not a commercial airliner? Not a small single prop plane, but an F-22 fighter plane? Merely coincidence? Well, in the interest of time, I'm going to try to skip forward again here through the article. We're coming up very shortly. This is a short break at the half-hour mark. We then move into a longer segment, and that's where I would be willing to entertain hearing calls from the listening audience. That number to call in is 1-800-313-9443. That's 1-800-313-9443. You can also see it there right on the RBN webpage. As I skip forward into the article, it's now I'm quoting from DeMars. Let's see here. Thomas DeMars is the lead researcher on this project at the University of Florida. His quote, "It's essentially a dish with 60 electrodes arranged in a grid at the bottom. Over that, we're putting the living cortical neurons from rats, which rapidly begin to reconnect themselves, forming a living neural network, a brain. Now, the brain and the simulator establish a two-way connection, similar to how neurons receive and interpret signals from each other to control our bodies. By observing how the nerve cells interact with the simulator, scientists can decode how a neural network establishes connections and begins to compute, DeMars said. Now, when DeMars first puts the neurons in the dish, they look like little more than grains of sand sprinkled in water. However, individual neurons soon begin to extend microscopic lines toward each other, making connections that represent actual neural processes. You see one extend a process, pull it back, extend out, and it may do that a couple of times, just sampling who's next to it, until over time the connectivity starts to establish itself, he said. And then, continuing the quote, "The brain is getting its network to the point where it's a live computation device." A live brain, folks. It's living matter. It's material. It's neurons taken from a rat's brain. Now, To control the simulated aircraft, the neurons first receive information from the computer about flight conditions, whether the plane is flying in a straight line and level or is tilted to the left or to the right. It's getting this feedback through the sensors. Then the neurons analyze the data and respond by sending signals to the plane's controls. Those signals alter the flight path, and new information is sent to the neurons, creating a feedback system. Now, again, a quote from DeMars. Initially, when we hook up this brain to a flight simulator, it doesn't know how to control the aircraft. So you hook it up, and the aircraft simply drifts randomly. And as the data comes in, it slowly modifies the neural network so that over time, the network gradually learns to fly the aircraft. I love how they keep calling it a neural network, when in reality it's a brain. It's living material from an organism. It's material from a rat's brain. Once again, the new information is sent to the neurons, it gradually learns to fly the aircraft. Now get this, folks, get this part.